Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. The Philippines posts a nearly $2 billion deficit in March as global market volatility pushes more capital out of the country. Flying soon, get ready to pay more as terminal fees rise nationwide, with CAAP blaming inflation and airport upgrades. And the Vatican confirms Pope Francis died of stroke and irreversible heart failure after falling into a coma on Easter Monday. First, let's take a look at how global financial markets performed overnight. U.S. stocks tumbled Monday after President Donald Trump escalated his attacks on Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, calling him Mr. Too Late and a major loser in a social media post, while demanding immediate rate cuts to avoid a potential economic slowdown. The comments rattled investors who are already on edge over Trump's ongoing trade war and the growing question marks around central bank independence.
Today with stocks, it's another ugly day. You had some tweets or Truth Social posts from the President of the United States threatening to fire Jay Powell. This is a continuation of the tariff and policy uncertainty. We've seen policy uncertainty now is well above where it was even during COVID. And with the potential for Jay Powell being fired, which would be unprecedented, that's really causing investors to really worry today.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 2.5%, the S&P 500 lost 2.4%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq dropped 2.6%. Meanwhile, European markets were closed for Easter Monday, a public holiday observed across much of the region. In other news, more dollars flew out of the Philippines last month as the country's balance of payments swung to a nearly $2 billion deficit in March, raising fresh questions about foreign inflows and the peso's long-term trajectory. Bangko Sentral data shows a $1.98 billion deficit, which is a sharp reversal from a $3.09 billion surplus in February and down from a $1.17 billion surplus in the same month last year. The balance of payments measures how much money enters and leaves the Philippine economy, and a deficit means more funds exited than came in. The BSP says the decline was mainly due to the national government's foreign currency withdrawals to pay off debt, as well as its own dollar operations in the foreign exchange market. The figures come amid heightened global uncertainty from Trump's tariffs to shifting capital flows. Business leaders and investors will be watching closely. A weaker BOP position could add pressure on the peso, import costs, and interest rate strategy in the months ahead. Holy Week travel surged this year with over 1.7 million passengers passing through NAIA between April 13 to 20 as infrastructure upgrades and smoother operations helped the country's main gateway handle the holiday rush. The figure marks a 12.7% increase from the same period last year. Both international and domestic travel registered double-digit growth, with international passenger traffic up 11.21% and domestic passengers up 14.2%. The new NAIA Infra Corporation, led by San Miguel Chief and Bilyonaryo Ramon Ang, says improvements in facilities and ground operations made a noticeable difference. NAIA infrastructure upgrades will continue as the consortium prepares for even larger travel volumes ahead of the Christmas season. The Holy Week numbers underscore NAIA's growing capacity under new management and raise expectations for long-term transformation of airport logistics and travel-driven economic activity. Now, air travel is getting more expensive as the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP, hikes terminal fees across the country. For international flights, the passenger service charge will rise from 550 pesos to 900 pesos for domestic travel. The new terminal fee is 350 pesos if you're departing from an international airport, and 300 if you're flying out of a Class 1 airport or a smaller facility. CAAP says that the adjustment is long overdue and based on inflationary pressures, stressing that passengers who fail or refuse to pay will not be allowed to board. The higher fees come amid a recovery in Philippine aviation and could have a ripple effect on travel costs, airline pricing, and tourism flows. Business groups and tour operators are closely watching as cost sensitivity remains high amid a fragile consumer recovery. More Filipinos are traveling by sea as port activity surged during Holy Week amid the onset of summer vacation. Data from the Philippine Ports Authority shows over 2.29 million passengers traveled between April 12th through the 20th, a 37% jump from the 1.7 million during the same period last year. PPA General Manager Jay Santiago credits the rise to growing interest in domestic tourism, the start of school breaks, and the effective rollout of Oplan Biyaheng Ayos, Semana Santa 2025. The surge highlights robust domestic consumer activity, a positive signal for transport operators, local economies, and tourism-driven enterprises this summer season. The Bank of the Philippine Islands delivers strong first quarter results with net income surging to over 16 billion pesos despite heightened global uncertainty and volatile market conditions. The performance underscores the resilience of Philippine banks amid rising geopolitical risks and shifting interest rate outlooks worldwide. Sujin Kim has the details.
The Bank of the Philippine Islands kicked off 2025 with another record-breaking first quarter, reporting a net income of 16.64 billion pesos, up 9% from last year. The profit surge of 1.3 billion pesos marks the third consecutive year BPI has posted a record-high first quarter net income. Despite global headwinds, including heightened trade tensions and recession fears, BPI's operations remain resilient, backed by expansion in consumer and MSME lending, aggressive digitalization, and a strong push into wealth management.
Obviously, there are some headwinds this year, right? We think we need to be very mindful of what happens in the global economy. There's a lot of talk, a lot of possibility about the global recession. I guess we'll have to just wait and see. We have to see where the tariffs actually land. We have faith that our economy is a consumption economy.
Double-digit loan growth was recorded in Q1, driven by a near 30% jump in non-institutional loans, including mortgages, auto loans, and personal credit.
Basically, we expect loan growth to be in the low teens area, maybe in the 12 to 13% area. That's fairly consistent with our expectation for the year.
Consumer spending also lifted BPI's credit card business, buoyed by demand for travel and essential goods.
We're still expecting growth for 2025. Credit cards largely driven by consumption, and we see that continuing in the first quarter of 2025.
In wealth management, BPI is targeting a 15 to 18% increase in assets under management, building on its 1.53 trillion base from 2024. As part of its strategic pivot, BPI continues to invest in digital channels, data-driven lending models, and branch transformation, efforts that have helped the bank gain 5 million new customers in just 2 years. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The next generation of the Zobel de Ayala clan is stepping up. Mariana Beatriz Zobel de Ayala, daughter of Bilyonaryo Jaza, has just joined the board of the Bank of the Philippine Islands, one of the country's oldest and most influential banks. She was elected during BPI's annual stockholders meeting, marking a big move for the family's younger leadership bench. Also elected, former Bangko Sentral Assistant Governor Restituto Cruz as an independent director. Mariana now sits alongside her cousin, Jaime Zobel Urquijo, who's been on the board since 2021, and her uncle, Fernando Zobel de Ayala. International Container Terminal Services, or ICTSI, is expanding its global portfolio with a strategic move into Brazil's logistics corridor. The port operator has acquired a 47% stake in Estaleiro Inayuma, a former shipyard in Rio de Janeiro that comes with perpetual property rights. ICTSI plans to transform the 32-hectare site into a modern container terminal, boosting port capacity and enabling greater trade connectivity across South America. The deal is part of ICTSI's broader strategy to diversify its revenue streams as global supply chains shift and infrastructure players race to secure high-potential logistics hubs. Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon took a hands-on approach on Monday, riding the MRT-3 to see firsthand how services can be upgraded for commuters. This time, the focus is on leveraging technology to enhance daily operations, safety, and passenger experience. Our mobility correspondent G. Baroga has the details.
Transport Secretary Vince Dizon returned to the MRT-3 to see how things are going now that the metro is back to its usual busy pace after Holy Week and recent maintenance work. He was joined by ICT Secretary Henry Aguda and MRT-3 General Manager Michael Capati. They checked operations at the Trinoma station, one of the line's busiest stops. Secretary Dizon says there are still queues, but they're not as long as before. He credits some of the improvements to changes in how bags are screened.
We asked them to make some adjustments with the protocols for the X-ray machines, because there are X-ray machines in all our stations. So they separated those that don't need to go through the X-ray with those that have bags that need to be X-ray. And that actually worked wonders. At least what we saw today.
To help ease crowding, MRT-3 now has 20 trains running during rush hours. That means more space and faster service. More changes are also on the way. There are new high-tech CCTV cameras to boost security. The DOTR also wants to make it easier to pay for single journey tickets, which are still cash only.
I asked the ICT to help us out, and they will also, together with the private sector, try new payment carousels, which will allow you to use different modes of payment, like your credit card or your GCash, your phone.
The ICT is also planning to install fast, reliable Wi-Fi at all major MRT-3 stations and eventually inside the trains. Secretary Dizon says this is only the beginning. Big rail projects like the Metro Manila Subway, North-South Commuter Railway, and the MRT-7 are all moving forward.
We have to give our commuters back more time. Yung oras talaga, yung nawawala sa pag-commute, it's less time spent with the family, it's less time spent productively. So we have to give our people more time.
Secretary Dizon's long-term vision is a commuter-friendly Philippines with reliable, efficient public transport that works for all, even the rich. For BNC Mobility, G. Baroga.
We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Welcome back. Let's check on how Asian markets are moving this morning, with investors reacting to fresh uncertainty after U.S. President Donald Trump escalated his attacks on Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Right now, the Nikkei 225 is flat with a downward bias. So is the Hong Kong Hang Seng Index is in the red by a bit more, down by 0.5%. Shanghai's Composite up by 0.3%, and Singapore's Straits Times Index up by 1.1%. Now, here at home, after the Holy Week break, the Philippine Stock Exchange Index started the week in positive territory yesterday, up by 0.1% to 6138. Analysts say sentiment remains cautiously optimistic, supported by hopes of further rate cuts and a more accommodative global monetary environment. Now, taking a look at the PSC Index, right now the main gauge is lower by 0.3% to 6118. The broader all shares index in the red as well, down by 0.3% to 3635. As for the sub-indices, we're seeing a mixed picture. The financials, industry, and holding firm counters are in the red, while the property counter, services, and mining and oil counters are bucking the market's downtrend, with the mining and oil counter up sharply in early trade, up by 2%, a little over 2%. Now, volume of trades is at 56 million. Value turnover is at about 750 million. We've got 52 advancers, 59 decliners, and 38 unchanged. Now, in the currency markets, the peso opened slightly weaker at 56.65 against the greenback, down from last Wednesday's close prior to the Holy Week break of 56.61. Traders cite the BSP's rate cut and cooling inflation as positive underlying factors for the peso, but note that external uncertainties could keep currency volatility elevated. The COMELEC launches an investigation into alleged election violations, including campaigning during Holy Week, as it enforces rules ahead of the May 12 polls. Joash Malimban has the details.
Just days after the Holy Week, the Commission on Elections is already investigating multiple election violations. In Quezon City, the COMELEC is looking into a possible vote-buying case after reports surfaced about a congressional candidate allegedly distributing cash cards containing 2,000 pesos. One party list group and 3 local candidates are also under investigation for allegedly campaigning on social media during Maundy Thursday and Good Friday. COMELEC Chairman George Garcia says some of the posts contained direct vote for messages despite repeated reminders from the poll body.
Bawal ang campaigning sa Monday, Thursday at Good Friday. Meron po dyan, nagkampanya gamit pa rin ang kanila pong social media accounts. So ibig sabihin, pangangampanya pa rin po yan. Hindi pa rin sila tumigil sa pagkakampanya. Dahil po dyan, kasama po yan sa iimbestigahan at i-issuehan din na show cause order ng ating komisyon.
The COMELEC is currently investigating over 100 cases of vote buying. This include consolidated reports from different parts of the country. So far, 8 show cause orders have also been issued against candidates violating anti-discrimination guidelines, with the possibility of more to come. COMELEC reminds all candidates, respect the election guidelines and do not test the power of the Commission.
Alam niyo po, seryosohan ito. Papaalala ko po muli sa lahat. 253 ang hindi namin pinroklama na nanalong kandidato ng barangay ng SK. So ibig sabihin, gagawin po namin muli yon. Sapagkat pag hindi namin naman kayo pinroklama, saan kayo basta pupunta? Kaya question ninyo, hindi namin pagpoproklama. That's the discretion of the Commission, especially if the evidence against all of you are very strong.
Meanwhile, the COMELEC has officially launched the Random Manual Auditing Committee in Pasay City. Partners in this initiative include the Department of Education, Philippine Statistics Authority, Philippine Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and election watchdogs like NAMFREL, PPCRV, and Lente. According to Chairman Garcia, the random manual audit serves as an added layer of verification to ensure the integrity of the elections. The process will compare electronically transmitted results with manually counted votes from 762 randomly selected clustered precincts for local elections, as well as in overseas online voting posts. Auditing teams in these precincts will be composed of public school teachers and trained electoral board members. The random manual auditing is set to begin on May 13, a day after Election Day. Joash Malimban, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
With less than a month to go before the May 12 elections, administration-backed candidates continue to dominate the Magic 12. The latest SWS survey commissioned by the Strat-based group shows 9 Alianza candidates making it to the top 12. Among them, Congressman Erwin Tulfo, Senators Lito Lapid and Bong Revilla, Las Piñas Representative Camille Villar, and former Senator Manny Pacquiao. Senator Bongo is leading the pack, while TV host Willie Revillame and Senator Amy Marcos are just outside the winning circle. The poll was conducted from April 11th to the 15th, over 2 weeks after the president's sister withdrew from his senatorial slate. In other news, the Philippines and the U.S. kick off this year's Balikatan exercises, a large-scale military drill that carries strategic weight, not just for security, but for regional trade and investor confidence. More than 14,000 troops are participating in the drills, which run until May 9th. The exercises include a multi-maritime operation, now joined for the first time by Japan's self-defense force. 19 other countries are invited as observers, including France, Canada, Germany, and the UK, reflecting growing global stakeholder interest in the region. The 40th Balikatan comes amid heightened tensions in the West Philippine Sea, a flashpoint that continues to influence foreign investment flows, supply chain strategies, and regional and economic stability. Now, a death certificate released Monday confirms that Pope Francis died from a stroke and irreversible heart failure, marking the end of a historic papacy that transformed the Vatican's global outreach. The 88-year-old pontiff fell into a coma on Easter Monday and passed away in his Vatican City apartment. His death was confirmed through an EKG. In his last will, the Pope requested a simple burial at the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome, close to the Madonna icon in the Pauline Chapel that he deeply revered. His death comes as a surprise to many. Just a day before, Pope Francis was seen waving to crowds in St. Peter's Square on Easter Sunday. Pope Francis was widely seen as a bridge builder, advocating for the poor, climate action, and interfaith dialogue, leaving a global legacy that extended well beyond the church. Now, President Bongbong Marcos joins world leaders in mourning Pope Francis. On social media, PBBM called Francis a man of profound faith and humility. He says that the Pope led not only with wisdom, but with an open heart to all, especially the poor and the forgotten. Mr. Marcos also says that the Pope's humility brought many back to the fold of the church. He says that the Pope taught us that to be a good Christian is to extend kindness and care to one another. Now, in the U.S., Harvard University takes a stand, filing a lawsuit against U.S. President Donald Trump in a case that could shape the future of research, higher education, and global innovation. The lawsuit filed in federal court in Boston seeks to block Trump's move to freeze billions in federal funding after Harvard rejected a White House push to impose rules on campus governance and speech. While the Trump administration cites a crackdown on anti-Semitism and bias, Harvard argues that the measure threatens free speech and universal autonomy. With Harvard at the center of global research ties from biotech to climate science, the case could set an important precedent for academic freedom and international collaboration. Despite the uncertainty, universities and scientific communities worldwide are watching closely, hoping the courts will uphold principles that protect innovation and open exchange. And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Thank you for joining us, and keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo news channel.